Let's get started by saying hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ben Coffey. I'm the Hydropoint Training Manager. Thanks for tuning in to Smart Water Wednesdays. Today we are discussing H2O 2-wire, and specifically we're going to talk about the decoders. And I'm going to share my screen here and go to the official starting screen, the one we made yesterday and has been condoned. Matt Trotter from Smith Turf is my special guest today. Matt and I have worked together for a number of years and done a number of events together. Matt has a lot of experience with 2-wire systems, specifically H2O systems, doing the install, working with the decoders, and so he will provide invaluable insight into kind of today's subject of the day. First of all, I want to stop sharing and go back to Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hello.
Thanks for being here and thanks for making time for us. Today we are going to just do decoders. What I've tried to do with Smart Water Wednesdays is make 2-wire an approachable subject. So previously we had a designer on where we talked about the design elements of 2-wire and what makes 2-wire different than conventional wire systems, and how kind of the fundamentals of the difference. And we talked really about the value of 2-wire versus conventional wire. But in that conversation, it was a key part of the conversation is understanding that the electrical system is a little bit different. We offer conventional wire controllers. They all have a hot wire and a common wire for every valve. And WeatherTrack H2O, the 2-wire system, only has 2 wires that run all of the field components. And fundamental in that, a huge part of that conversation is this decoder, right? And instead of directly attaching the valves onto the 2-wire path, between every field component and the 2-wire path, we'll have a decoder that is in charge of powering that device, as exchanging all of the information and operation of that valve or that device. So today we are going to go through and talk about all of the different specialized decoders that you might encounter on a 2-wire system, and just have a real brief high-level discussion about the 6 different types of decoders that are out there and the things that you might think about when if you are proposing to put WeatherTrack H2O 2-wire on your site. A big part of transitioning from an old system to a new system is understanding all of the components. So on top of the controller hardware, you'll need to understand just enough about these decoders to get the right components in the field for yourself. Okay. So let's start with this single station decoder, right? Just like we were talking about, right on that 2-wire path, every valve is going to need a decoder to translate the information. That 2-wire path not only has voltage on it at all times, so it acts as the power conduit, but it also acts as the communication conduit. So the WeatherTrack controller or the H2O controller will call out an address of this decoder, and this decoder is always listening. And as soon as the communication comes down the path that says, hey, we need to turn on station 1, for example, the decoder for station 1 hears its address called and says, all right, I need to do something, right? That's when it kicks into action. It lets the power through and turns on whatever device is on the other side of it. Does that make sense, Matt?
Absolutely.
Anything to build on that?
No, I mean, it's an address, exactly, or telephone number. You know, the brain of that computer is dialing a number, and you're picking up on the other, allowing irrigation to begin.
Matt, your audio's cutting out on me.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, can hear you now. Yep. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. I'll just lean forward a little bit. It's a little sensitive. So it's no different than just dialing a telephone number, essentially, and somebody's picking up on the other end. In this case, it's the decoder allowing that call to go through like a switchboard, and allowing that solenoid to take on.
Yep, exactly right. And one thing that is important to understand about any two-wire system, these decoders are proprietary. So a weather track controller needs a weather track decoder, and it's really even more important than that, because in our history we've come up with a number of two-wire solutions progressing toward this H2O solution. An H2O controller needs an H2O decoder. You might actually have a weather track system that isn't H2O. We had a previous iteration where we partnered with 2Core, and 2Core made all of the decoders and the two-wire infrastructure, and we attached that to a weather track controller. So you got all of the weather brains and flow logic of the weather track, and 2Core handled the two-wire management. And since that partnership, we have created this H2O system that is a HydroPoint system from the ground up. So that's what I love about it. This is all ours. We make these with HydroPoint personnel, including everything from start to finish. So the valve decoders are made by HydroPoint people, and our engineers have designed it so we really have a lot more control about the features and functions and rollout and response that we can build into the system. So it's very exciting. But it's also important to understand that if you are looking at a two-wire system, we need to be very specific and make all of the field components, all of the decoders, match the system that is in control. So when you switch out a two-wire system, not only do you have to switch out the controller, but all of the decoders need to be switched out as well. One other thing about the station decoders is I think it's important to know that you can order these pre-programmed. As an installer, programming the decoders doesn't take very long, but it takes 30 seconds a decoder. And if you're talking about 100 decoders, having them pre-programmed can save you a lot of time on installation day. So I definitely recommend, if you want to save yourself some time, take advantage of that little feature or service that WeatherTrack provides. Matt, anything about station decoders before we move on?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay, let's talk about the two-station decoder. Oh, just kidding. The two-station decoder. Yeah. Just like the single-station decoder, the two-station decoder, it sits on the two-wire path and operates instead of one valve. This will operate two valves, and this is a great way of saving a little money, right? The advantage is a two-station decoder costs a little bit less than two single-station decoders. I personally like having a single-station decoder on every valve, just because I'm nerdy like that, and I like the process of troubleshooting. It makes troubleshooting, in my mind, much clearer, because it eliminates a couple of the if this then that kind of scenarios. But the two-station valve decoder really has two real benefits. It not only saves you a little bit of money, but it also reduces the number of times that we need to cut into that two-wire path, right? And like Matt and I were talking about in the opening, cuts into the two-wire path are almost always the points of failure on maintenance of these systems. And so the fewer cuts into that two-wire path, the fewer opportunities we have for things to go wrong. Again, we can order these pre-programmed if you like, and WeatherTrack decoders need to match up with WeatherTrack controllers. Matt, have you used any two-station decoders?
I have not, but it goes back to your comment. We like to see single-station decoders.
Matt, I'm losing you again.
We like to see single-station decoders whenever possible. So I have not used any of the two-station myself. Again, you commented that there's a little bit of a cost savings, less, splicing in the system, and I agree with that. But, it's kind of a peace of mind to know that if you're going to go into a valve box, you've got 2, 3, or 4 valves in a large valve box, you've got one decoder dedicated to each valve. And it makes the process easier. And
Nope, I'm losing you, Matt. I only heard about a third of that last thing.
all right.
Sorry. Oh,
is this better?
That is better.
I don't know what's going on with it, but we'll keep working. Where did you leave?
So we were just talking about the number of splices is what I heard you talking about.
Okay. So yeah, obviously two decoders or a dual decoder save you a little bit of money, but we like to see that decoder on there because it's
No, yep. Sorry, I'm gonna move on. Let me.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I don't either. But I only heard about half of that. So I apologize to you and to our listeners who are definitely tuning in to hear what you have to say about that. Matt, do you have a headset that you can plug in while we do this master valve decoder?
I don't.
Okay. Because I am still hearing about half of what you say, but it's pretty jumbled. All right, so let's talk about master valves. Master valves are the specific valve at the top of the irrigation system. You put this in front of everything right after your point of connection to control the pressure on the main line to allow water through. These have a specialized decoder that goes along with them. So if you have master valves, points of connection that you want to manage on the 2-wire path, then you'll need a master valve decoder. One of the cool things about WeatherTrack H2O 2-wire is that we give you an option to manage your points of connection on the 2-wire path, but we also give you an option to direct wire those components to the controller. And so if you have master valves and flow sensors that you are using out in the field, if we are inheriting the design, a lot of times they're already on the 2-wire path. And we have decoders that we can use to dial those things in. However, I feel, and we at HydroPoint feel like it's safer to direct wire those components into the controller. The reason being, if you have a big main line and your 2-wire path running on that main line, and you cut through both of those things, the main line can open up and start to flood. And by cutting through the 2-wire path, you can create enough interference on that 2-wire path that it's calling out addresses and the devices aren't hearing what the controller is doing. And so we feel like it's a much safer option to have that flow sensor and master valve directly wired so that the insurance policy that you bought for your irrigation system is there when you need it most. Not to say that it will fail, but we have seen it fail. And so we feel like that direct wire or running a specific wire set for your master valve back to the controller and direct wiring it into this port that you see here is a safer way to go. And with WeatherTrack, they can be mixed and matched. You can have one point of connection on the 2-wire path, another one direct wired in. You can really choose whichever device you're using and how the controller should listen to it. Matt, you got anything to build on that?
Well, just to reiterate, well, first of all, is the speaker better?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay. I feel like the way that you can mix and match, and I agree that if you can get a direct connection back for the master valve, it's certainly going to work, better than relying on that 2-wire path in case you have any interference. But, for those of you out there that can't do that, it's a retrofit system, having that master valve along the 2-wire path is certainly doable. There's no issue there. And we've done it on several sites in Tennessee in particular.
Okay. One of our listeners had an idea. Can you call in to can you use your phone to call in and get your audio onto a different channel?
Sure.
Because you're breaking up and we want to hear what you're saying. But we're not getting very much of that through. I apologize, Matt. Technical difficulties. Do you find the phone number?
I think I've got it here.
Perfect. And Janine will patch that through. Thanks for manning behind the scenes. Janine Jackson, shout out to the tech support. While you do that, I'm going to move ahead to flow sensor. This is a very specialized decoder. Again, you'll only need the flow decoder if you are using a flow sensor on a 2-wire path. So these can be direct wired, and you will not need a decoder if they direct wire. But if you are adding that flow sensor to the 2-wire path, this little guy will allow you to manage all of that flow information right back to the controller. So good for any flow setup, including the OptiFlow controllers or however you are managing flow on your system. But using those flow decoders are a valuable part of getting that information back to the controller if you are in fact using the 2-wire path. All right. While Matt is connecting, Mike says it looks like I am using baseline decoders. That is true, that we are all, I think that they're called HydroPoint decoders. Both the baseline technology and the WeatherTrack H2O 2-wire technology use the same decoders from a high level. They look the same, but on the inside, the programming on the microchips, the programming for those decoders that bring the features to life in the field are different. So, so we make those decoders for not only the WeatherTrack H2O, the baseline, as well as some of our other manufacturing partners that we make the decoders for. And so you'll see this style decoder out in the field on a number of different 2-wire systems, but just be very aware that it's the software on that decoder that makes it specialized for use on the H2O system, and other decoders that look like this won't work unless they are the H2O decoders. So thank you, Mike, for bringing that to our attention. And Matt, are you back? Nope, can't hear you. Technical difficulties. We'll keep working at it. All right, on to pump start decoder. Matt, you keep trying to figure out how to get your voice onto this call while I talk about pump start decoders. If you are managing an electrically activated pump on your system, you will need a pump start decoder. These guys act like a light switch. They sit on the 2-wire path and tell the pump or allow electricity from the 2-wire path to the pump start relay, right? So we have a 24-volt transformer that we wire in and then into the decoder, and then the decoder will say when that transformer passes the electricity through to the pump start. So this is a little bit different than previous iterations of our 2-wire system. On our previous system, the electricity came straight from the decoder. In this case, you'll have to wire in a transformer at the pump location, and we'll use that external transformer to power whatever pump power there is or pump needs you have. Matt, did you get in? Nope. Still nothing. Sorry, Matt. We're going to keep going. All right. One of the things that I want to highlight about the H2O pump start decoder is, again, a little bit different. On every other WeatherTrack system, conventional wire or previous iterations of 2-wire, when we were using an electrically activated pump, you would assign the station that you wanted to be in charge of that pump. So you could say, I want station 48 to manage my pump relay. And then anytime a program was assigned to use the pump, we would put power on 48 and it would turn on the pump. That's a little bit different for the H2O. With the H2O system, that pump start decoder is going to go onto station 1. For POC 1, it needs to be on station 1, and that has been a bit of a learning curve. This is actually what made Matt Trotter come to mind when looking for special guests, because he and I worked through this together in the field. It looks like you are off of mute. Matt, do we have a better connection? Nope, still nothing. All right, we'll keep going. I apologize for the technical difficulties this morning, guys. We are gonna just keep going through. Now, this is really the biggest topic around 2-wire. One of the big differences, one of the huge learning curves in differences between conventional wire and 2-wire is grounding the system. Like, I would say that at least 90% of the conventional wire controllers that I see out there don't have any grounding at all. So most irrigation techs don't expect to need to ground the systems. And grounding is a hugely important part of the 2-wire process. And so we have these surge arresters that need to be dispersed throughout the entire system and ground the entire 2-wire path to protect it from any lightning that might be happening out on site. Matt, can you hear me now? Nope. All right, so give me the thumbs up if you think you're in. I'll test you. So when we talk about surge arresters, this is probably the second most common type of decoder that you're going to have. You're going to have the most common is going to be your valve decoders because you have the most valves, but surge arresters need to be dispersed throughout the 2-wire path with a scientific approach, right? They have to be in key locations throughout. So you want one at the controller, for example. You want to ground the 2-wire path at the end of every 2-wire run. And then also about every 600 feet along that 2-wire path. And what this does is it allows us to protect from any lightning disruption that might be happening out on site. So definitely in more lightning prone areas, we ask for a higher rate of grounding. So where you see every 600 feet, that's kind of the general rule of thumb. If you're watching from Florida, you know that you are in the lightning prone area. And so that in Florida, we ask to ground that 2-wire path every 300 feet. We double the amount of lightning protection because there's so much lightning that happens down there. And what that does is if lightning strikes your site anywhere that the lightning can be picked up on the 2-wire path, if the electricity from the lightning is coming down that 2-wire path, it's going to fry everything. It's going to fry the decoders, it's going to fry the solenoids, it's going to make popcorn out of the solenoids and blow them up like a Jiffy Pop bag. And really it's going to take out everything in between 2 lightning rods, 2 places where we ground that system. So to protect yourself from long-term financial burden of just constantly troubleshooting and replacing decoders because of lightning damage, we definitely recommend the surge arresters be paid attention to at the specified rate. And so we show you what that looks like, right? Not only do you need a surge arrestor, but each surge arrestor needs to be grounded with a grounding rod or grounding plate, some sort of grounding source that we attach that surge arrestor to. So if lightning, the voltage from lightning is cruising down that 2-wire path, it has a place to off ramp, it has a place to go, so it doesn't just fry every component all the way back to the controller. And so this is how it attaches to that 2-wire path. We definitely always use the DBRY-6s on any connection that we make to the 2-wire path, but then all of the specified grounding happens after that. You're going to use the split bolt connectors and connect it to the number 6 bare copper wire that then you run to your grounding rod out in the field. And if you're using an 8-foot grounding rod, we have a rule of thumb we call the sphere of influence. We recommend that with an 8-foot grounding rod, we place your grounding solution 8 feet off of the 2-wire path. So what that means is with an 8-foot grounding rod, if an 8-foot grounding rod is absorbing a lightning strike, the sphere of influence is the area that grounding rod is going to push the electricity out into, right? And it will equal the length of the grounding rod. So an 8-foot rod will push push electricity out into the ground for an 8-foot radius. And so we want to put that far enough off of the 2-wire path that if lightning is being absorbed by the ground, it doesn't get picked back up onto the 2-wire path and continue down the path and continue to hurt your components out there. So if you do this, right, you set that grounding rod too close to the 2-wire path, then the lightning that's going into the ground will just pick back up onto the 2-wire path and continue to move on down the system. So please be careful when grounding. Use all of the proper surge protection. We are going to get into more details of that in future segments where we're going to talk about what 2-wire installation, 2-wire troubleshooting. We really are going to, Matt's back in. We're going to try this one last time, where we're going to try to really just in bite-sized chunks talk about the hardware of 2-wire and the process of owning it and kind of get you familiar and comfortable with what it means to manage a 2-wire system. Matt Trotter, are you back?
We had to kind of reconnect.
Nope. Still nothing. So I don't know what happened to Matt Trotter. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to hear what WeatherTrack saves Matt Trotter. I appreciate you making time, Matt. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to our audio today. I will leave you all. We are just approaching the deadline here. We're coming up on half an hour, but I did want to show you guys. I just put out a new 2-wire video. I'm creating my 2-wire training officially for the certified training stuff. And I'm building that in parts. The first part that I built was this decoder training that I have posted on our YouTube site. So if you haven't seen our YouTube channel, you should check us out. You can find all of the videos that I make and others make about WeatherTrack. What I want to show you today goes on our playlists tab. If you click on playlists, you might have seen some of the previous stuff that I did. I made a mobile app demonstration that I break it down into chapters. Well, I did this same thing for our 2-wire decoders. I made a full video that's 27 minutes long, and I go through all of the decoders. So if you want more of this information, the technical ins and outs, I actually plug the decoders in and show the process of getting them programmed. And a little bit more in-depth conversation. The 27-minute video is all of them. Or if you want to just learn about one or another of the decoders, I've broken that down. I've broken out each chapter so you can watch and learn about each decoder in its specific nature. So check us out on YouTube. In the meantime, let me double check my questions. Grounding, Mike says grounding only works if it's ohmed out properly. Amen to that. We're going to get into that in the installation. Make sure that the grounding solution actually does what it's designed to do, and we'll talk about how to verify that and how to test your grounding solutions. Scott Hunt says, I've been able to run a pump start off a master valve terminal and direct wire. Absolutely, that's a good workaround. Not specific to this, but there are workarounds for sure. And so if you are looking for a solution, by all means, the textbook solution is using the pump start decoder, but we also have other solutions that we can talk about if they are, if you're looking for alternates, right? That's the kind of thing that I will help you brainstorm with all day long because I am just that nerdy. So Matt Trotter, one last time. Can I hear you? Sort of.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody. I wish I could have been more helpful.
Matt says, sorry, everybody. We are going to catch up with Matt. I will definitely invite him back. We'll figure out what sort of audio shenanigans happened today and have him back on. In the meantime, thanks for logging in today. Sorry for the technical issues we had, but hopefully you got some good information about the H2O 2-wire decoders. And I look forward to next week when this is a session that I've wanted to have since day one. This is something that I've been working on since we started Smart Water Wednesdays, and that is to have my partners from Fort Carson here in Colorado come on and talk about they have a weather track project that they've kept very close tabs on. So they know exactly the kind of savings that they have, but on top of that, we're going to get into the features that save them time, how they have turned this weather track project into a real shining example of how efficiently water management projects can A, save water, and B, make managing large sites very easy, and get to the bottom of any issues that the system is detecting. So it will be a very interesting conversation next week with my friend Alvin Jackson. So make sure to check us out. And in the meantime, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Matt. I'll follow up and call you soon. We'll figure out what happened.
Yep. Thank you, Ben.